There was a Jewish man who was living in Eastern Europe when the Nazis came in. His wife was taken away by the Germans, Yimach Shemam, and she was murdered. He, her husband, and their baby, their young Jewish boy, managed to save themselves. How? He managed to smuggle into the home of a non-Jewish woman who was a neighbor. She was a single woman, and she agreed to take in the surviving husband and their child into the house in order to be able to camouflage the situation, because of course she'd be shot immediately. They made believe that they were a married couple. So now this Jewish man who lost his wife in the Holocaust was officially married to this non-Jewish woman who was his neighbor, and they were raising this little Jewish boy officially as a non-Jewish child. As the years went on, they developed a true liking to each other, and they actually got married. They got a civil marriage, and they had a second child together. This child obviously wasn't Jewish, because this child, unlike the first one, was born from the non-Jewish woman who saved now her husband and his first baby. The war ends. The Jewish husband decides to immigrate, leave Europe, and come to the United States of America. He brings his wife over to America. They're now living in America, and they're raising two children. One child lost his mother in the Holocaust. He's a Jewish boy. And the other one is a non-Jewish boy who was born later from the non-Jewish mother. The Jewish boy does not find his place in America. He's uncomfortable in the family. He decides to go to Israel as soon as he can. He goes to Israel. It's amazing. He enrolls in a yeshiva. He gets himself an intense Jewish education. He becomes a serious scholar of Torah, a Jew who lives with Torah, lives with Yiddishkeit. He marries, he builds his family, and he lives in Bnei Brak. His brother, I should say his half-brother, his non-Jewish brother, continues to live in the United States of America with his father, who is assimilated and quite secular and intermarried, and his non-Jewish mother. Not long ago, the religious brother living in Bnei Brak in Israel gets a call. Who's on the phone? His half-brother. Our father died. He wasn't in touch with his father. Our father died. He left over an inheritance, $50 million. There's two children. My brother, you get $25 million, I get $25 million. Now, for any Jew living even in Manhattan, it wouldn't be such bad news. A Jew living in Bnei Brak, the price of a gift of $25 million is not bad at all, to put it mildly. He hangs up the phone. But then, wait, what about burial? What about burial? My brother is not Jewish. The wife is not Jewish. My father is Jewish. He needs a Jewish burial. He calls back his brother, and he says, what about the funeral arrangements? I'm going to arrange for the Chevra Kadisha. They didn't need the free Hebrew Burial Society. They didn't need your service. They had $50 million. But I'm going to arrange that he should get a Jewish burial, according to Jewish law, put in a Jewish cemetery. The brother said, no. We already have a plot in a Christian cemetery near his wife. I forgot. I said that I wasn't sure if the mother died. She died already. Near his wife, his mother, there's a plot for him, and he's going to be buried there. The brother says he's a Jew. He should be buried in a Jewish cemetery according to Jewish law. The other brother says, no. He was living with my mother. They were not living as Jews. I'm not Jewish. She was not Jewish. He used to be Jewish. The brother says, not used to be Jewish. He's still Jewish. They go to court. You know what the verdict of the judge was? Cremate the body. Split the ashes. Half of the ashes get buried in the Christian cemetery near his wife, and half the ashes get buried in the Jewish cemetery. This is the verdict of the judge. The brother calls back, the Jewish brother from Israel calls back his other brother. He says, listen, let's take it out. Let's make our own compromise here. Bury him in the Jewish cemetery. According to my wishes, I'll give you $50,000. $50,000. The man says, no way. It's not about the money. He says, name your price. He says, I agree to bury him in a Jewish cemetery if you give me your part of the inheritance. $25 million to give your father a Jewish burial. This Jew is a Torah Jew. What does it say in Shulchan Aruch? What does Jewish law say? He calls up Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein, the son-in-law of Rabbi Elyashiv Zatzal. What do I do? What do I do? No, if you were the rabbi, what would you say? What would you say? Not a simple question. Do you have to give up $25 million in order to give your father a Jewish burial? You allow him a Christian burial. You know what Rabbi Zilberstein said? He said, you have to give it up. You have to give up the money. Why? Why? He said, because the halacha, Jewish law is that the money of the burial is collected from the assets of the deceased before the inheritance is split up between the heirs. So just as if your father had a loan, he owned the bank, $20 million. Before you split up the inheritance, you have to pay back the loan, and then you split it up you split up the rest of the money. The money of the burial is taken from his own assets before the inheritance. So usually it costs $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. Here it happens to cost $25 million. True, it only costs $25 million because your brother is playing tough. True, but that's what it costs. Where does that money come from? The property, the assets of the father before the inheritance. If that's what it costs, you have to take it from the money of the father. So the $25 million goes to the burial. This was the verdict of Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein. Did everybody agree? There were those who questioned the verdict. Some said, this is a Jew, he's a mummar. He grew up as a Jew. He knew about Jewish tradition. He chose to intermarry and to continue living that way till his death. The other son doesn't have an obligation under these circumstances. There's different sides of it that are discussed in the contemporary halachic literature. This was the verdict of Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein. But what do you learn from here? The value that Judaism places on bringing a body to burial, sometimes even if it can cost $25 million. Imagine.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.